Saw Melly's statement just saying how he's been hurt, how he's scared for his life. As a mother, how did that make you feel?
It's heartbreaking. It made me feel
The legal dispute involving rapper YNW Melly, whose real name is Jamel Demons, is becoming more intense as his lawyers file a case against the Broward County Jail, claiming that he was subjected to inhumane treatment and that his constitutional rights were violated. A bleak picture of his circumstances in jail is presented in the case, which Melly and his legal team believe will gain his release. Claims of cruel treatment, such as prolonged seclusion, a lack of family interaction, and inadequate living circumstances, are at the heart of the accusations. His supporters are furious about these charges, and discussions over how prisoners are treated in the American jail system have been rekindled. According to the complaint, YNW Melly was subjected to cruel and unusual punishment by the Broward Sheriff's Office. The lawsuit claims that Melly has spent the last 3 years in a frigid detention cell with little to no human interaction and no nutritious food. According to reports, the rapper has been prohibited from communicating with or seeing his family since his arrest in 2019 and subsequent charges related to the killings of his 2 boyhood friends. His physical and mental health have suffered greatly as a result of this seclusion, raising questions about his general well-being. Melly's legal team contends that these circumstances are against his fundamental rights, particularly the 14th Amendment's provision of due process and the 8th Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. They contend that the Broward Sheriff's Office has overreached itself and disregarded fundamental principles of humane treatment, and they are calling for prompt action to alleviate his circumstances and ensure his release. Jamie King, Melly's mother, has spoken out about the terrible effects her son's incarceration has had on him and his family. In a recent interview, she spoke about how learning of her son's issues left her feeling heartbroken and helpless. King described Melly's existence in prison in graphic detail, highlighting his deprivation of access to essentials like edible food and contact with family. In the interview, King said, "As a mother, it makes me feel completely helpless to see how he's been hurt and how scared he is for his life." She continued by claiming that the prison personnel ignore monitoring and judicial decisions and act with impunity. King claims that since courts have little authority over prison operations, even hearings into her son's abuse have been fruitless. It is important to note that serious accusations are the root of Melly's legal troubles. In 2018, the rapper is accused of killing 2 of his close pals, Christopher Thomas Jr. YNW Juvie and Anthony Williams YNW Sack Chaser. Melly has been detained since his arrest on charges that he arranged the incident to seem like a drive-by shooting. Earlier this year, his first trial resulted in a mistrial after the jury was unable to reach a unanimous decision, paving the way for a new trial. The complaint and family remarks raise a larger question. Despite the charge's obvious seriousness, should prisoners awaiting trial be put to such severe circumstances, especially in light of the presumption of innocence until proved guilty? The information supplied by Melly's family and legal team provides a startling look into the circumstances he deals with on a daily basis. Isolation from family members seems to be one of the biggest problems affecting his mental health, perhaps more so than the physical agony of a chilly cell and little food. Melly is allegedly walled off from the outside world since he cannot receive letters, phone calls, or visits. Given the length of his imprisonment, these circumstances are very worrisome. Melly has been going through these difficulties for 3 years without his case being resolved, endangering his mental and emotional health. His lawyers, who are demanding quick reforms, share his mother's concern that her kid would not live much longer in these conditions. Important concerns about the treatment of prisoners, especially those awaiting trial, are brought up by the accusations made against the Broward Sheriff's Office. Although the goal of prisons is to keep people safe, they must also adhere to fundamental human decency standards. A concerning lack of accountability is shown by the assertions that the prison makes its own rules and functions with minimal control. Melly's situation is by no means unique. Lawsuits and publications have shown cases of cruel treatment in detention centers around the nation, ranging from overuse of solitary confinement to insufficient medical attention. In addition to violating the rights of prisoners, such actions erode public confidence in the legal system. YNW Melly supporters have united behind him, demanding that the Broward Sheriff's Office be held accountable and transparent. There have been petitions and social media campaigns calling for an impartial inquiry of the jail's operations. Legal experts have also voiced their opinions, pointing out that instances such as Melly's might establish significant precedents for prison supervision and inmate rights. Critics contend that Melly deserves compassionate treatment regardless of the accusations made against him. They argue that the presumption of innocence ought to apply to his incarceration circumstances as well, guaranteeing that he won't face harsh punishment prior to a conviction. As the case progresses, it could draw attention to structural problems both within and outside the Broward County Jail. The stakes for YNW Melly are quite high. In addition to improving his circumstances, his legal team's victory in this case may have an impact on more extensive changes to the way prisons treat pretrial inmates. The rapper is still in jail at this time, contesting the conditions of his detention as well as his criminal allegations. Even under the most difficult and contentious circumstances, the case emphasizes the significance of striking a balance between justice and humanity, even if the courts decide not to step in on his behalf. She broke down in the courtroom when Melly asked if she was okay, demonstrating that they must answer to someone as well. During Melly's trial, we saw a glimpse of how sad she is about Melly, even though he was given a mistrial. His lawyers immediately asked for a bond or house arrest until the next trial, but this was immediately denied. Because of the size of the case and the fact that Melly is always having things go against him, we heard Boozy discuss the stress that his mother has been under. I met his mother when he was in kindergarten. I met his mother when he was in, and she was real, bro. I heard that she was stressed out, and I reached out to him because I'm real. When I see them like that, it reminds me of what my mother was going to do for BR, but while his attorneys were preparing to have him released from prison, we witnessed YNW Borland being thrown into jail, which will likely ruin Melly's chances of getting out. We have confirmed that Melly's co-defendant, YNW Borland, was arrested on Monday night in a Miami jail on an out-of-county warrant for witness tampering. The warrant was obtained by Long Crime Network and states the following information on or around April 10, 2023 through and including July 22, 2023. Henry, also known as Borton, and others intentionally and illegally engaged in deceptive behavior toward another individual with the goal of causing or persuading them to conceal testimony. A warrant is still in effect. A judge declared a mistrial on July 22nd, the same day the warrant claims Portland allegedly tampered with the witness because the feds obtained the search warrant and raided Borland's house, finding very concerning paperwork about the trial with the report. The alleged witness had been summoned by the legal process to the jury trial of Jamal Demons, also known as YNW Melly. The dates in the warrant are significant because they show that jury selection for Melly began in mid-April. The drawings from last week's home raid of Borland's house depict jurors sitting in the courtroom with descriptions of their appearances, which is very serious given how academics responded to it. To be honest, this is sloppy, Portland. How are you going to have the jurors' notebooks in your home? Goddamn holy shit, you know what I mean, brother? It's like doing, and then having the surveillance tape in your DVD player or something like that. What I'm trying to say is, come on, bro, that Rager crib and the surveillance footage of that are in your DVD play. Like, oh, okay, thank you, brother, this can't be your crib, because imagine Melly was sentenced for the charges against Sack Chaser and Juvie. Borland went straight against the idea that jurors should remain anonymous in the courtroom because of this. But the new prosecutor in the case provided the judge with evidence files that relate to Melly's motivation was revealed by the prosecutor when he discovered that Melly had a close relationship with King Von in the past. Recently, an All Block member shared something that King Von had told him about Y, and Melly asked V how to handle his situation with two of his best friends. Did V really tell you that Melly told him that he had two friends, but he didn't come out and say that they got into a fight and that people could say things without saying them? He told me that once I posted what I did, Vanon was upset at me. Why did you put the B there, bro? I'm like, you know the love we have you do this for us, but you're going to believe that his two friends are trying to extort him. If so, why are you still around him? It turns out that Sack Chaser and Juvie were after Melly for money. They wanted a larger share of the YNW business than Melly wanted to give them, and he was receiving advice from King Val, who knew his past, so you can only imagine. What guidance would V have offered Melly? This is bad for Melly because they didn't link it to a motive in the first trial, but when you combine it with his phone messages admitting that he did it, it's not good for him. When the PGG Gambino account asked him if he was okay, he replied, "I did that," and included a smiley face emoji. The next message from you at 1602 Eastern Standard Time on 10/26/2018 said, "What after that?" The YWM count then said, "What, but oddly enough." Melly also had a Facebook Live saved to his phone that, only hours after Juvie Music and Sack Chaser went away, showed Melly and Borland enjoying a wonderful day. So, no matter what occurred, you don't feel terrible for the fallen closest friends, and Melly is still turning away after this early morning. He's still out, being extremely upbeat. In order to ascertain if this was a drive-by event, the prosecution also has the evidence of a qualified crime scene investigator who disclosed that the Jeep they were in wasn't a drive, and I concluded that this isn't a drive-by. It's based on this image, which does a great job of describing it. One of these rounds is completed at a stationary position, and when all but one of these rounds are completed, there is one round that involves some movement. This is round L, where the actually moves to create the little bit of a that you see there, okay? There is a lot of information in that response. I'm going to zoom in on site number because you mentioned that there were 17 rounds outside the car. How many rounds were inside the car? 3. Can you rule out the fact that Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas are coming from outside the car? Yes, from the passenger side in the back seat. As for Christopher Thomas, where did that driver's side back seat go? Is it possible that there were two inside that car? No, why not? The investigator has no time to reveal that the crime must have occurred inside the vehicle. Every indication points to the back left seat passenger. Juvie's mother then took the stand to identify who went where inside the vehicle. Are you related to one of the people involved in this case? If so, how? I'm his mother. Who is Christopher Thomas? Miss Phillips, did you see who got into the Utans and who got into that gray Jeep? Do you know where your son got into that gray Jeep? If so, which seat did he get in? If you can identify for the jury he got in the back seat on the well, did you identify the person? Who entered the rear seat on the left side, the unusual driver's side, and who is that person? Yes, Mayam, J&J, and Jamal are the defendants. However, during the past year, as the prosecutors have been working to establish a strong case, Melly's attorneys have attempted to secure his release once more by stating that M's doom retrial is scheduled for September 2025. His mother, Jamie King, provided an update outside the courthouse telling Melly that he is free and will return home. Please be patient. He and Bort both had court today, and the judge essentially set a new trial date for September 10, 2025. At this point, they should just dismiss the case, and yes, he still doesn't have phone calls, visitation, or contact, and he's still in the new facility by himself with no other inmates. He's also not allowed to interact with any of the other inmates. They move him around with multiple guards. The new case will also have a completely different judge because, as was announced, Judge Murphy has effectively retired on August 1st. Judge Martin will preside over the Melly retrial, which will have new prosecutors, lawyers, and a judge in September. However, we saw Melly appear in court for his most recent music update, and we heard that the new judge heard that Melly's lawyers were out on a bond release. With so many moving parts for the retrial, we anticipate a delay. Melly has been going through these difficulties for 3 years without his case being resolved, endangering his mental and emotional health. His lawyers, who are demanding quick reforms, share his mother's concern that her kid would not live much longer in these conditions. Important concerns about the treatment of prisoners, especially those awaiting trial, are brought up by the accusations made against the Broward Sheriff's Office. Although the goal of prisons is to keep people safe, they must also adhere to fundamental human decency standards. A concerning lack of accountability is shown by the assertions that the prison makes its own rules and functions with minimal control. Melly's situation is by no means unique. Lawsuits and publications have shown cases of cruel treatment in detention centers around the release soon, but because Melly and Borland were taken very quickly in February 2019, it wouldn't be shocking if he didn't get out. Borland was freed on bond in 2019, but Melly was kept in custody the entire time, even after her mistrial was granted on July 22, 2023. This is primarily because of Borland's initial police interview, which implied that he was innocent and Melly did everything. I'm trying to drive while ducking for my life. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but I'm trying to make sure I don't get struck while I'm driving. And you're telling me this to make sure I don't get hit. You know what I mean when I say that I'm going to worry about something that you shouldn't worry about, but if you tell me that it occurred there must be some proof, and there will be shattered glass. I kind of think I know what happened because I have information. But Melly just seems really unlucky in this case because when his lawyers tried to get a bond release again, there will be broken glass over here from when you guys opened the doors and anything like that, and there will be casings from the people at your car when the windows got out, as well as other evidence over there. Recently, Melly was hit with even more charges. The state filed 6 new charges against Demons and 2 other people who were allegedly involved. The charges include unlawful use of a two-way communication device, tampering with a witness, and criminal solicitation or conspiracy to commit tampering. A couple of those charges carry a life sentence in prison if found guilty. W. Melly, whose real name is Jamal Demons, is seen in plain clothes in the courtroom for the first time. These charges relate to how Melly and Borland were allegedly seen manipulating his ex-girlfriend so that she would not testify in the case. We even witnessed YNW's father discuss how their witness tampered with both Melly Jamal Demons. It's been months since this judge actually began the drawn-out process of selecting a new jury. Melly and Corlin YNW, it seems that the prosecution is accusing Henry, also known as YNW Borton, of witness tampering because of the bizarre manner in which Melly was passing notes to people while communicating that he was not permitted to use the phone. Then this person called this person, and that person said that they were using cold language, such as Rihanna and Asset Rocket's baby mom, to try to cover up or persuade people not to testify, like Mariah's mom.